Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Ashley Martella. We're pleased to be joined by former House Majority Leader Dick Armey, one of the architects of the Republican Revolution and the Contract with America. Mr. Armey is also chairman of the conservative nonprofit organization Freedom Works, which was founded during the Reagan presidency in 1984. His organization was the national sponsor of the March on Washington in September, including the Tea Party Express Tour. He joins me and my esteemed anchor, Kathleen Walter, here at Newsmax headquarters. Welcome back, Dick.
Nice to be back.
Welcome, leader. As you continue the national conversation through Freedom Works about healthcare reform, the response in the form of opposition to President Obama has been overwhelming. Are we seeing a populist uprising here?
Oh, I think so. In fact, I think we saw it. It goes back to last April when we had the initial Tea Party uprisings across the country. It fascinates me to watch the Democrats' response. They said, oh, they're nobody, they'll go away. Then they came back in August. Then they had the March on Washington. And they're finally coming to terms with the fact that these are very real concerns expressed by hundreds of thousands of American citizens all over the country and in their congressional districts. And it boils down to the simple observation by Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama: we can't get our votes in the legislative body because the members of Congress are being responsive to the concerns raised by their constituents. They consider this a wholly un-American activity, of course, but it is the way democracies work.
The House health care bill calls for rationing and a determination of eligibility to be made by bureaucrats, not doctors. There's also a $500 billion Medicare Advantage program cut. There's a Health and Human Services Administration gag order on insurance companies, stopping them from mailing out information to their clients, advising them of the proposed cuts. What's your take on all of this?
Well, again, Army's axiom: if you're going to peddle a bum steer, you better keep it under wraps. First thing they want is nobody should know what's in this bill. This was their strategic mistake. When Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Pelosi, allowed the committees to report that bill before the August recess, they gave America a chance to read the bill. This is why it blew up in their faces. But the fact of the matter is, it's heavy-handed, it is coercive. If you read the bill, it is frightening. For example, if you buy your own insurance, you're subject to a federal audit. There isn't a person in America that isn't afraid of a federal audit, because they know the government to be ruthless and indiscriminating as they treat you, as they respond to people. And so the country is really concerned. They consider this a big, unnecessary government takeover, an aggressive government takeover of
And
healthcare.
those who elect not to buy health insurance, don't want to buy it, are subject to high IRS penalties.
Absolutely. And of course, one of the things that they've gotten away with for years, and I bring it up for people to understand. People don't understand the enormous punitive reprisals that are brought against doctors and hospitals under Medicare law, as it exists today, the impositions against the seniors under the law, the restrictions. Can you imagine passing a law that says to a person, you can't buy now what you bought a year ago simply because you've turned 65, in an age when we have a government that has a watchful eye out for age discrimination, enforcing these kinds of restrictions, limitations on people, and punishing doctors in hospitals that don't fully participate in their program as they set it up.
Key to the debate over healthcare reform is government control as well as the right to choose a healthcare plan. Talk to us about where things stand right now with the recent lawsuit that lets seniors keep their Social Security benefits even if they reject Medicare. This was a big victory for you.
This is a big victory for me, and I think for America, for my partners in the lawsuit, to think that we could take on the government. And imagine this: they have been enforcing a policy memorandum since 1993, not a law, not a regulation, just a memorandum that says to people, if you, for example, a Christian Scientist, if you decide not to enroll in Medicare, you lose your Social Security. Where does this come from? What audacity is this? And the reason we bring it, obviously, it's a issue that needed to be set right in its own account, and we've done that, and I'm proud of the courts for seeing our case. But it also is a reflection that people should look at. If they're that ruthless with our senior citizens, they'll be that ruthless with you and me as if they get their hands on all of America's health care There will be these kinds of hidden, secret, bureaucratic implementations that aren't understood or appreciated. I talked to members of the United States House and the Senate that didn't know this was going on. I talked to a few senators who knew it was going on and just didn't want to do anything about it. So we took it to the courts.
All right, liberal Democrats in the Senate are resolute, sound resolute, about putting in the so-called public option, a government-run health insurance plan. If they do that, will there be a citizens' revolt, do you think?
Oh, I think so. And of course, there's a big difference. In the Senate, you really have to get some kind of consensus. There's very few opportunities to use the rules in a heavy-handed way to force your case. In the House, they control the Rules Committee, they can force the case. And I've always said the agenda is always set by the majority of the majority. The majority of the majority in the House want government-run health care. They think having a public insurance option is a compromise from their most desired position, which is to just have the government run it all.
There's some speculation that Harry Reid might attach the entire health care reform on as an amendment, attack an amendment onto a spending bill. Do you think
that
he's
would
likely
be
to do
budget
that?
reconciliation. Yeah, yes, I think it's possible. Harry Reid, it would be the end of Harry Reid's career. In Nevada, they wouldn't tolerate that, and he would be gone. And so you have certain understandings. There are very few members of the House or the Senate that are going to purposely lose their own job over their party's purpose. And I don't think that Harry Reid is willing to make himself the sacrificial lamb to the policy ambitions that he doesn't necessarily share with such people as George Miller from California, who is an absolute zealot on government-run health care.
Let's switch gears real quickly and talk about what's going on in the United States in terms of the economy, financial reform. How do we get out of this current financial and economic crisis? And what are the chances that there could be another crash of sorts?
Well, obviously, the big financial crisis that affects all our financial institutions, especially our banks, with the inflation in house values and the whole mess, comes from 2 or 3 decades of bad public policy. The market will clean that up eventually. What I think they've done with this stimulus, first of all, they say, well, give us all this money for the stimulus. They've only spent about a quarter, and that's basically been on pet projects, politically defined pet projects, and it's had virtually no impact. I saw Senator Bai say yesterday on TV that he thought we were better off than we would have been had there been no stimulus package. I think we're worse off.
Representative, the Bush tax cuts are set to expire next year. Democrats have no intention of renewing them. Will this create even more economic damage in your view?
Well, certainly it will. I mean, even John Maynard Keynes said when you have a recession, you cut taxes, you don't raise taxes. And you have to understand, to buy your way out of a recession or depression as the Keynesian formula predicated all those years ago, I'm talking 1936, is not a workable solution when right now, you have to understand, the biggest single problem that beleaguers the American economy is that the government is too big a burden. It's already so big that the economy can't carry it. Now, if you add then more government to that, it's like you've got some poor old hiker trying to make it up a hill and you keep putting rocks in his knapsack. You're going to eventually buckle his knees. So buying your way out with growing government is counterproductive. Cutting taxes smartly is the only wise thing and possible thing for them to do, and yet they're going to reverse that.
You're committed to promoting limited government and freedom. What concerns you the most about the number of czars that President Obama continues to appoint?
Well, it's a circumvention of the system. The fact of the matter is, and I would be the first to tell you, we have too many cabinet positions. But every cabinet position exists in a compliance with the constitutionally defined processes by which such systems of governance and management and control, regulation. What do we do with these czars is say, never mind that. We're going to put extracurricular people in by my whim and fancy, empower them, and circumvent the Senate's right to advise and consent. And we don't know for sure how much power these have. Are these guys ceremonial sops he's given to his buddies, his cronies, or do they have real authority and people that listen to them? But it is an administrative structure that is extra constitutional, extra legal in my opinion, and therefore I think it's a danger to your liberty and mine. What we saw in the Medicare lawsuit, what a nameless, faceless bureaucrat can do with a memo can cost thousands of people their right to say no to the government without giving up their Social Security. Can you imagine being a Christian Scientist all your life, never having visited a physician, never had insurance all your life, and all of a sudden you're 65 years old and they say if you don't sign up for government-run insurance, you're going to lose your Social Security, your life savings? This is absurd. But that was a bureaucrat, and that's what a czar is. He's a presidentially appointed bureaucrat that is given powers by the president. The powers should be shared, and that we have the whole constitutional structure of checks and balances and so forth. All that's being preempted.
Pete Sessions from your home state of Texas, Representative Sessions, says that right now the Republicans are poised to do even better next year in 2010 than 1993 when you guys had the Republican revolt with the contract with America, based in terms of funding and candidates and interest.
Well, they have a lot of the pieces in place, and they are poised in some respects better than we were. Obama has built a greater stage of public disappointment in himself and his presidency than the Clintons had at that time. What the Republicans don't have now is that great idea that appeals to them, has a massive appeal to the American people. We're going to work with them. We think we can come up with this great idea that sort of gives a unifying sense of understanding. America understands us, respects us, is on our side. The Republicans, that is, are people like Ronald Reagan who know and love us and are on our side. The Democrats are telling us shut up and not meddle in their business. And if you can put that contrast out there, I think they could conceivably win the majority. But they haven't congealed that idea that has that national appeal to the American people yet. Until they come up with that idea, they're not prepared to take over the majority.
Leader, one last question for you. Sarah Palin has a new book coming out. Recently, a McCain strategist said Sarah Palin in 2012 would be disastrous for Republicans. What do you think?
Well, you have to understand, the McCain strategists, the McCain people, feared Sarah Palin the moment she was chosen. This is so typical of every presidential candidate staff, which is they're so afraid that the vice presidential nominee will upstage their guy. And Sarah Palin, I think, is now on her own hoof, on her own terms, given expression to her own voice without hinder, and she's going to demonstrate herself to be a far more shining example of what small government conservatism is and how well it can be understood and expressed than the McCain campaign was able to do. And yeah, if I were a McCain operative, I'd say, yeah, I don't want Sarah Palin, the person our guy picked, to show up in the next presidential race as the person our guy was pretending to be.
One of the most eloquent voices of conservatism today, former House Majority Leader Dick Armey. Thanks so much for talking with us here at Newsmax.
Thank you, ma'am.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV. Sarah Palin's new book, Going Rogue in American Life, will be released on November 17th. Newsmax will be among the first to have copies. Check out our incredible free offer for Sarah's new book. Just go to Newsmax.com and click on the top banner for this great offer. Act today.